Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got a major storm coming that's going to bring an Arctic blast, heavy snow, flooding rains, and an ice storm, as well as severe weather. Good morning everyone, this is your Monday update. We've got a lot to talk about this morning, so let's kind of delve into the details. Let's take a look at the overall map for this morning, and we've got 37 degrees up here into Seattle, where they're going to be entering some rain showers this morning, but we've got heavy snow with that Arctic blast entering out of Canada with that widespread 20 below zero up here in Winnipeg. But it's got heavy snow right now in Bismarck, up into Aberdeen. That's all the way into Duluth, where they're getting 1 to 2 inch snowfall rates per hour at the moment. But that Arctic air is going to continue to dive southward, bringing a lot of heavy snow with it and some ice, as well as some flooding rains, and there's also a severe weather component as well. So let's delve into the hazard advisories for this morning over the next couple of days. We've got numerous widespread winter weather watches and winter storm warnings for a good chunk of the northern plains. All this area in pink here, that's some heavy snow swath. All the areas in the purple areas as well, that's going to bring some little bit lighter amounts of snow, but still pretty significant amounts. But there's also a flooding component too, with this upper level low jet that's going to be swinging across. We're going to have to be dealing with some flooding rains in the portions of southern Missouri, getting into northern Arkansas here, as well as portions of Tennessee and Kentucky, with those flood watches in effect. So as that cold air continues to plunge down, we've got numerous advisories in place, and it's all has to do with this strong upper level low that's going to be pulling that piece of energy, and then it's going to be pulling in that southwest wind. Well, a southwest wind is typically a warmer wind, so that's going to cause havoc as that pushes warmer air aloft, falling into the Arctic air. And the Arctic air is very cold, obviously, but it's very dense and heavy, and it sinks to the surface. So that's why we're going to have these ice threats, as well as along with that heavier snow component and that strong severe weather component as well. So we've got a lot to talk about. Let's take a look at the overall temperatures for today, because there's the Arctic blast heading in from Canada. Those are high temperatures, folks. I mean, it's not even get above zero in the portions of the Dakotas, but we've got widespread 70s and 80s still in the warm sectors, so it's going to be plenty warm. But that's going to be changing in a big way as we go into tomorrow, and especially into Wednesday. So here's the overall setup for tonight. As this upper level low, there's also a severe component as well. So there's a strong cap in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but it is expected to weaken somewhat to the north of Dallas-Fort Worth, along the Red River, out in portions of West Texas. Especially as you get into Oklahoma, you're going to be starting to see in some of those strong to severe thunderstorms as we get into the overnight hours. And there's the heavier snow swath well to the north, along with that Arctic blast. So you've got that heavier snow in and around the Dakotas, going into Minneapolis, into Duluth. And then because of that southwest wind, yes, there's that warm air aloft that's going to create a lot of ice on its way as it pushes further south. So there's the setup for this morning with that heavier snow swath. The Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted a moderate risk for that heavy snow, with these convective bandings just basically training from west to east. So some of these snowfall rates and near blizzard like conditions in parts of Minnesota here, as well as the Dakotas, where they're going to be picking up some significant amounts of snowfall as this continues to dive further south. But as it gets further south, with that low level jet going into the overnight hours, there's also a severe weather component as well, where we do have a slight risk for severe weather, mainly northern portions of North Texas, getting in along the Red River into Oklahoma here, northern parts of Arizona, as well as southern Missouri, where storms could get strong to severe, and some of those could be rotating. So there's still a possibility of seeing an isolated tornado threat. But the main threat with this system would be some stronger severe thunderstorms with that isolated hail component of up to 1/4 inch, and then that damaging wind component as well, as this races across into the overnight hours. And as it continues to push across, there's the heavier rains as we go into the overnight hours tonight, heading into Tuesday. Now it's pulling further northeast, going into Arkansas, going into Missouri, headed into portions of Tennessee and Kentucky, where they're getting into those flood watches. And that's going to be a concern as these convective training cells just kind of train over the same area, dumping some very heavy rainfall in its wake. In fact, we've got a marginal risk for flooding rains in excess of 1 to 3 inches. If you're in the Memphis area going into Cincinnati, all the way to Charleston, even portions of Pittsburgh here, all the way to possibly Roanoke, that's an area in that green swath that could pick up 1 to 3 inches of rain. So if you're in the yellow swath, you're talking upwards to 2 to 4 inches. This is just for tomorrow, guys, that with that heavier rains moving into Chattanooga as well as Nashville. But once you get it down to Paducah, yeah, we're talking possibly 3 to 5 inches of rain. So that could be a serious flood threat as we get into with that moderate risk category for excessive rainfall. And some of these isolated areas could pick upwards to 6 to 8 inches just for tomorrow alone, as that system will be training over the same areas. But you also have that severe weather component as well, as that slight risk for severe weather has pushed off further to the east. So this is your Tuesday time frame, heading into portions of Arkansas here, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, getting into western Tennessee. Along with those flooding rains, some of those could get out of hand and be on the severe side with that spinning rotation in the atmosphere as well, with that upper level jet moving across your area by then. So you still have that hail component as well as that damaging wind component as well. So definitely be on the lookout for some of those stronger cells, as well as the flooding rains that you're going to have to be dealing with. But there's the Arctic front. As we get into tomorrow afternoon, on Tuesday afternoon, about 3-4 o'clock, that's not a misprint, folks. That is 8 degrees in Denver. That tells you that's some serious cold air on the way, and that's plunging southward. And this is very shallow, cold air mass as this continues to dive southward. Arctic air is very dense, it's very heavy, and it sinks to the surface, and you're going to have that southwest wind, going to have that warmer air aloft. You're talking 3,000 to 4,000 feet. That's going to bring falling as rain, and where you're going to be cold enough, it's going to be falling as freezing rain as that shallow cold air continues to dive. So I mean, it's like 74 degrees in Dallas and widespread 30s for tomorrow, with that falling in around the Oklahoma area. But as that continues to push further off to the south, those temperatures drop in a big way. But yeah, there's your winter storm severity index for the next couple of days. And where they're going to be getting that convective banding, you're talking major impacts in portions of central Minnesota here, and then moderate impacts as well, with that very heavy snow moving across. Some of these areas could pick up 12 to 18 inches of snow, more common areas of 8 to 10 inches of snow. But yeah, even down further off into the Four Corners regions, we still have minor to moderate impacts, all the way impacting Arizona, portions of Utah, getting back into Colorado, as well as Wyoming here, and then into Nevada. There's still those minor to moderate risk for that excessive snow that's going to be causing havoc in those areas on Monday and Tuesday time frame. So as this continues to push across, here's the latest NAM. So this NAM model does, help. It does factor in, it kind of does a lot better with this deep, shallow, cold air than a lot of the other models. So it has trended much colder, and a difference of 3 to 5 degrees obviously could make a huge difference. If a lot of this is just plain old rain, and a lot of this is it falls to the surface, will stick to everything on contact. So this freezing line continues as we get new data coming in. It continues to push the colder air further and further south, and that would cause a southeast shift. And a lot of the forecast right now with this freezing rain getting deeper into North Texas and going into portions of central Texas as well. So we definitely have to be on the lookout for that as cold Arctic air continues to plunge. So here's the noon update on the latest NAM, and yeah, look at these temperatures. That's 29. So yeah, if you're getting a cold rain at 32 to 34 degrees, that's no big deal. But you get a cold rain at 30, you start getting back into the bridges and overpasses and some of the surfaces. You get a cold rain and starting to get into the 20s and 28 degrees, that starts to stick on everything, on roads, on bridges, on overpasses. So that's going to cause widespread issues as this shallow cold air mass, widespread 20s in Oklahoma. That's all freezing rain right there. But yeah, this freezing line would push a little bit further south, and I think some of the guidance has right now in and around portions of Texas. But that enters Arkansas as well and Missouri as that cold Arctic air continues to plunge southward as we go through Wednesday. And there's the setup by Thursday. We have a second disturbance coming across with still falling temperatures that would create the overrunning conditions. You've got a swath of sleet and freezing rain in much of North Texas and much of central Texas, and moving across Arkansas, southern Missouri here, portions of Kentucky. So you go from that severe weather component to the flooding component. Now you're in the cold sector by the time we get into that Thursday morning time frame in Kentucky, where a lot of this precipitation by now is going to be falling in the form of freezing rain. So you make a huge transition throughout the week from very warm to very cold. And there's your wake up temperatures by Thursday. Now, if the NAM is right, that continues to plunge the Arctic air. We're talking teens in Oklahoma now, widespread teens in Missouri. So you can see the shallow cold air masses. This continues to dive further and further south, would make a huge difference on the impacts on roads and surfaces. So as we transition into that Thursday afternoon, we're still dealing with that light to moderate freezing rain in and around Dallas, going into portions of Arkansas here, in and around Missouri. Now you're talking the deep, shallow, cold air will start entering parts of the mid-Atlantic states, going into the Northeast, where they're going to be tapping into some of that freezing rain component as we get into that Thursday afternoon into portions of southern PA, going into Baltimore, into DC, back into Jersey, portions of Delaware. They're going to be dealing with that freezing rain falling to the ground with the temperature starting to be cold enough. And as we transition to the latest GFS guidance, yeah, there's all that heavier rain to the south side with that warm sector still, and then there's that ice and sleet that you're gonna have to be dealing with as you get into later on the day on Thursday afternoon. Now that's entering portions of southern Illinois, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, and to the north you've got that heavier swath of snow that's going to be pushing across into central Illinois, northern Indiana, as well as northern Ohio late in the day on Thursday, and that continues to push across by the time we get into Friday morning with that heavier snow swath now entering the picture into portions of Massachusetts, getting around Vermont and New Hampshire, going into Maine as this continues to lift further to the north into portions of Michigan here, as well as southern Canada. And then that ice threat to the south side inundated a good chunk of Pennsylvania by then. And then there's the temperatures by Friday morning as that Arctic air continues to plunge. I mean, that's all that area in the green here. That is widespread below zero temperatures. As you can tell, this is going to be packing a punch for late February as those single digits will enter portions of Kansas, widespread teens in Oklahoma, and widespread 20s for much of central and North Texas, getting back into Arkansas, back into New Mexico here, into Arizona. So there's plenty of cold air going to be on the table throughout the week. And there's the heavier snow. So by the time we get into Friday night time frame, I think a lot of the layers aloft will all be cold enough to where everything that falls by then will be in the form of that heavier snow component as we move into portions of Rhode Island, getting into off here into portions of Boston, into Vermont and New Hampshire, as well as southern parts of Maine, as that low pressure system will continue to dive across. But let's kind of zoom into some of these snow amounts on the blend of all the models right now. And we've got some heavier snows. Once this pushes into the higher elevations, we've got those heavier snow swaths into portions of Washington, as well as diving into portions of northern California here into Oregon. And then the heavier snow will come back for the Sierra Nevada with those colder temperatures diving southward. And then also portions of Utah going into Arizona, and then getting into Colorado with a good swath of heavier snow. And that heavier snow swath will push into portions of Nebraska, especially South Dakota here as we go through time with that swath that's coming in right now. But the heavier swath, we could be looking at that 12 to 18 inch swath in northern portions of Wisconsin here, where they're getting those 1 to 2 inch snowfall rates per hour into central and northern Minnesota. As this continues to dive across further south, you're talking a widespread 3 to 5 inch swath where all the blue areas is. And then once that transfers to all snow, then all those amounts will increase into portions of going into Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, going into southern Maine, as well as New York here with a good 6 to 8, if upwards to 10 inches of snow. And then the overall freezing rain and sleet amounts would be a little bit, depending on the shallow cold air mass, how much further south this goes. But here's the blend of all the models right now. A glaze to 1/10 of an inch in and around North Texas, and in around central Texas, into Oklahoma, into Arkansas, to Missouri, to southern Illinois, to southern Indiana and Ohio. So we're going to be dealing with even into portions of Ohio, in Iowa, as well as Wisconsin here, with that freezing rain component as well into portions of Michigan. And then as we move through the east part of the country, now we're talking that that freezing line extending into all that area into Pennsylvania, going into New Jersey, along into Long Island, into Connecticut here, as well as Rhode Island. So on top of the snow you're going to have to be dealing with that ice as well. So a lot of impacts to come over the coming days for the next 5 to 6 days. So I'll continue to keep you updated on this major winter storm that's going to be impacting much of the country. I appreciate you guys watching, and definitely hit the subscribe button if you hadn't already, and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.